Sunflower House by Eve Bunting, illustrated by Catherine Hewitt, a Trumpet Club Special Edition. First I pull out all the weeds, then I sow my sunflower seeds. It says to set them in a line, but Dad says round and round is fine. I give them water every day and shoo the pesky birds away. Go eat the berries on the tree. These sunflower seeds belong to me. The package says they're guaranteed. A mammoth flower grows from each seed. My friend Bernice says, there's no way. You don't know everything, I say. Wait! The stems poke up, all ringed around, a pale green circle in the ground. They're growing tall, they're growing fast. And oh my gosh, sunflowers at last. All frilly yellow, big and bright. Mammoth is the word, all right. Their petals open wide and spread a golden roof above my head. My friends come rushing down to see the sunflower house, hand-grown by me. There's lots of room inside for 3. Mom brings us cookies and iced tea, but Mom and Dad can't fit at all. They're much too big and wide and tall. All summer long, the house is ours. We play in it for hours and hours. It's a castle, it's a cage. We're jungle beasts that roar and rage. My friends sleep out with me one night, bundled up and snuggled tight. Moon shadows shiver on the ground. The sunflowers whisper all around. They whisper songs of heat and rain and things too secret to explain. I see the stars play peekaboo and wish a wish that can't come true. One day the leaves are tinged with brown. A flower comes tumbling, rumbling down. Next day, some more bend over, fall, and now it's not a house at all. We tie up with string and sticks, but it's impossible to fix. It's gone. There's nothing we can do, not even with the Glues-All glue. Wait! There's still the puffy middle part that's filled with seeds enough to start. Another sunflower house next spring, with walls, a roof, and everything. It's neat to think when something's gone, a part of it goes on and on. It's such a super-duper plan. We pick out all the seeds we can. Our pockets bulge, the blue jays come, the sparrows, crows, they all take some. We still have lots and lots to share. Now beware, prepare, take care. Next summer, they'll be everywhere. Sunflowers grow all over the world. Some are big and have seeds in the middle, and some are small, and you can buy them in bouquets in the grocery stores. But they're so beautiful, and the details are so much fun to draw and paint. So that's what we're going to do today. We're going to draw and paint a sunflower. Let's paint some sunflowers. So today for this project, you'll need some watercolor paper. You'll need a pencil for drawing some of the details of the sunflowers. You'll need some paint. I'm going to use watercolor, but if you have tempera paint, you could use tempera paint as well. And if you don't have green, mix a little bit of blue with your yellow to make green. If you don't have orange and you want to add some orange to your petals, mix a little bit of red with your yellow, and you can make some new colors. I usually mix tempera paint on paper plates. So if you want to draw the centers of your sunflowers with just the pencil freehand, that looks probably more natural because nothing is perfect in nature. Or if you want to, you could use some round circle, I'm using lids. I have a larger one and then I have a smaller one because now we know that sunflowers come in all sizes. So let's get started. Okay, I've got all my supplies ready to go here. I'm going to start with my pencil, and I'm going to use both of these. I'm going to do a larger sunflower on my paper and a smaller one. So I want to think about where to put those, because remember, this will be the center, but you want the petals, you want to have enough room for the petals. So it's okay if they go off the paper, because sometimes in real life, if you're looking at something close up, you can't see all of it at one time. But I'm going to put the big one here, and then maybe I'll put the smaller one up here. And once again, I think the petals are going to run into each other, but that's okay. So we're going to, I'm just going to do a little circle. And remember, it's okay to draw your own circle. Sunflowers aren't perfect. There's that circle, and there's this one. Okay. Now, the shapes of the petals on a sunflower are in oval shape. And they do have a tip. They have a kind of a sharp point, but that doesn't matter because some of them are shaped with a little bit of a rounder shape. So all I'm going to do is think about making some petals like this. Remember, they can be different sizes because there are petals overlapping. So maybe this one starts over here and bumps into this flower and comes up like this. The easiest thing to do when you're drawing something in a circle is to turn your paper. So I'm going to finish this big one, and then we'll do the smaller one. And then maybe there's one behind here. So I'm just gonna, it's okay if they bump into each other because they do. Your petals might not look like mine, but that's totally fine because all those flowers are different. So I'm just going to keep going around and around, and maybe I'll turn my paper this way so it's a little bit easier, and I'll just make those petals all the way around. When I paint these petals, I may add some smaller ones in the front because there are sometimes on some of these sunflowers there are layers of petals. Okay. And now I'm going to do the small one. And you can see that this big sunflower is going to bump into this one, and this one's going to bump into it. But that's okay. So I'm going to start up here, and maybe these are just a little bit shorter. Maybe this is one of those sunflowers that doesn't really have seeds in the middle. This one I'm definitely going to paint and add some seeds. And I'll show you how to do that. It's okay to go over and off of the paper. In fact, sometimes that makes your artwork look even more interesting. Now, I'm to the place where these are going to bump into each other. So I'm going to pretend this one is behind the big one. So I'm going to go stop there and finish this one over here. And then there might be one here that comes down. So you're just drawing imaginary petals behind this big one. And we can get one here. And look at that. I'm going to just jump over that petal to add this one. When we're done painting these, when we're done painting these, we can take an eraser and get rid of all of the pencil marks. So let's think about where the stems might be. So this one, I'm going to have the stem come this way. It's really fun to paint these sunflowers on a big piece of paper, and then you've got, you can make the stems really long. And then I'm going to have this stem come down kind of behind the bigger flower. And I'm going to stop right at that first stem and then go behind it. So jump over and go behind it. I'll make this one a little bit bigger. So the stems of sunflowers are pretty hefty because they have to hold that big heavy flower up. All right, I think I'm ready to paint. Actually, I think I'm going to add maybe a really cool leaf here. And maybe there'll be one back here. Well, we'll see how that goes. Maybe we'll do a big one over, this one will be real over here, there. Then we'll have some nice sized leaves. So the first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna paint the petals. And then we're gonna let those dry, and then we'll do the inside of the flower. All right, I'm ready to paint. I'm gonna get my brush wet, and I'm gonna wake up the yellow. So I'm gonna just add a little bit of water to this yellow and get it kind of, I make a puddle in there so that I can start painting. So I'm just gonna go, I'm not gonna be precise. I'm not gonna worry about those pencil lines because they can go away later. So it's okay to overlap. So I'm just gonna fill all of these petals in, add a little bit more water. I'm using yellow, but I'm thinking this watercolor box has orange in it. I'm thinking it might be fun to add a little bit of orange while the yellow is still wet, because some of those sunflowers do have hints and tints of yellow in them. So artists often try things that they think will look good, and sometimes they like them and sometimes they don't, but they've learned something about themselves as artists in the process. All right, so I'm gonna just clean off my brush. I've got a paper towel here. Don't forget your paper towel. And I'm just gonna add some little hints of orange. And this is a wet on wet technique that you've seen in other videos, if you've watched our videos, where the paint will just kind of move through the water. Yeah, I like that. Gives it some great detail. So I'm just gonna go through all of these petals and paint them. I'm gonna speed up the video so you don't have to watch me paint all these. Did you notice that sometimes I rinse my brush off and add a little bit more paint, or maybe I've got too much paint on my brush and I need to add some water. Sometimes I have too much water on my brush and I need to wipe it on my paper towel to get it a little bit drier so it doesn't puddle on the paper. And sometimes it's best to just clean your brush and get a fresh start. Okay, ready to start on the second little flower. And keep in mind that you're gonna wanna let each step of this process of painting sunflowers dry before you start the next one. So I'm gonna let these petals dry before I add more petals. And I'm going to work maybe on the stem, or but that we'll save the center for later when it's completely dry so that the colors don't run together. so while the petals dry, I'm going to grab some green, wake up the green palette, and I'm just going to work on these leaves a little bit. If I don't like the color of this green, I can always add a little bit of yellow or even a little bit of blue to change the shade just a little bit. But I think I'm okay with that. I'm gonna make it just a little bit darker by adding a little bit more paint. So these are awfully close to the petals, and you can see what's gonna happen here is that they might run together. So I'm just gonna be super careful here. Now this stem is behind the one in front, so it's going to have a little bit of a shadow there. So I'm just going to dab a little extra green right there behind to show, and maybe all the way up to show a little bit of a shadow. All right, and then we'll do this leaf, and we'll let everything dry before we add some more petals and do the middle. Okay, mine's pretty much dry. Some watercolor artists actually use a hairdryer to dry their painting before they move on to the next step. I'm going to do the centers and let those dry, and then I'll show you, if you want, how to add some extra petals. You might just like the way your sunflowers look this way without some extra petals, but I'll show you just for an extra if you'd like to add some extra petals from the inside. So I'm going to start with brown, and into that brown I'm going to add a little bit of purple, because sometimes, especially on these smaller ones, waking up the brown, especially on these smaller ones, there are some very interesting colors in there. You know, the colors of nature are never just straight green or straight pink or straight blue. I mean, there's always variations and shades within that. So I'm going to wash my brush off, of course, before I find the purple, which is right here. And I'm just going to dab some places in here where I think the purple might make the center of this sunflower look more interesting. Yeah, I like that. All right, makes it look like it has some texture to it. And then I'm going to do the other one. Remember, you can always move your paper around to make it easier. And I'll do the same thing here. I'll add some purple to this, wet on wet, to make it look a little bit more interesting. And on this big one, we'll add some details later too that make it look like it might have seeds in it. That's what we'll use the smaller brush for. Oops. Now, I have way too much water on my painting. So this is something that watercolor artists often do. They'll end up with too much water. I'm just going to take my paper towel and lift that water off of there. And then I can go back and paint over that. There we go. And mix it in, and it won't be such a puddle. If you've got a big puddle, just take the corner of a paper towel and stick it right in the middle where the puddle is, and it'll start to lift the paint off of the paper. This is pretty good watercolor paper, so it takes a lot of water, but some of the watercolor paper out there doesn't absorb the paint very well. Okay, now let's add a little bit of purple here and there. Wash my brush off. Oh yeah, that's pretty. I really like that. All right, and it's time to let this dry too. You can always set it in the sun if you've got sunshine where you are, or you can use a hair dryer, or you can just let it air dry. As you can see, my big sunflower is still drying, but I'm going to show you on the smaller one how to add some extra petals. And I'm actually going to mix a little bit of yellow on my lid here of my watercolors and a little bit of orange, just to show the difference in the light, maybe how the light is hitting them. So I'm going to just roll my brush in that mixture that I just made, and right in between I'm just going to add another little petal, and maybe even more than one. And what this does is it just gives your painting some depth, as if, and you know, these are not supposed to be perfect, but they are supposed to be fun to look at. So I'm just going to take some of those white places and add a little bit of dimension and interest. Oops, that one still had some wet on it. Remember what to do. You just take your paper towel and lift it off. And then you can go over it again. There you go. So that's just going to give your painting a little bit more dimension. Now remember, after you're done painting this and it's completely dry, you can take a regular eraser and you can erase all your pencil lines, or you can just leave them. There's no police, there's no rules here that say that you have to erase your pencil lines. We'll do that on this one too, and try to stay away from the center. And when your center's dry, you can add some details to show the kind of seed-like things that grow in the center, especially on this big one. So I'm going to show you how to do that with the smaller brush, just in the area here where it's already dry. You can also do this with your pencil, but I'm going to do it with paint. So I'm going to take my little brush and I'm going to use black. Now, if you're using tempera colors, you can use a Sharpie marker, or again, you can use your pencil for this. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to make some little check marks all around the surface. And when I'm done, it'll look like these are possibly little seeds. And that'll give it some realistic detail and texture. Just all over the surface. You can do that on the other one if you want, or you can just do dots to give it some dimension, or you can just leave it. It's up to you. I hope you enjoyed making these sunflowers, and I hope you get to see some real sunflowers wherever you live. Sometimes they grow alongside the roads here. I don't know, people just throw seeds out. I see sunflowers in people's yards and gardens. I see them at the store and the garden centers. You can get a bouquet of them. And of course, the best is to grow your own and let the birds feed on the seeds in the winter. All right, see you next time in our next video.